couple of minutes delayed here as we're waiting for a couple of additional people to join, but we've decided to go ahead and start the webinar. So thank you very much for joining. My name is Andy Duncan. I am the CEO of Boardwalk Tech. I'm joined today by Dharmesh Dabdawala, who is our VP of Enterprise and a co-founder of Boardwalk, along with Heather Harris, who is our marketing manager for Boardwalk Tech. I'd like to start off by talking about basically how companies really run their business. And if you walk into any company today, no matter how large or how small, while a lot of money has been spent on the core transactional systems of record, and those could be ERP or PLM or finance applications, there is a tremendous amount of work that still gets done in Microsoft Excel. It currently is estimated to be well over 1 billion daily users of Microsoft Excel, and it is what we deem as the most important application on the desktop ever developed. It's fascinating how many things get done in Microsoft Excel, and certainly in the insurance industry, this is also very usual. Boardwalk Tech is a company that's based in Cupertino, California, and also in Mumbai, India. We're a worldwide organization. We call ourselves the Spreadsheet Company, and we have customers all over the world that range from in various industries, including in the insurance industry, and across many other areas within the enterprise. Boardwalk is unique because it's a patented database for Excel. That's as simple as we can state it. We are, as far as we know, the only company that has developed a database for Microsoft Excel. And utilizing this database, we can help companies build applications that will greatly improve their results. So how is Boardwalk used today across different areas? While we do have a number of insurance clients today worldwide, based upon confidentiality, we're unable to really talk about their specific applications, but we will definitely talk about specific applications for the insurance industry that we have built. But Boardwalk today, as an example, is used by PricewaterhouseCoopers in their tax business, with over 3,000 tax consultants connecting in to Boardwalk every day, managing information for their clients. Apple Computer, one of our largest customers today, and the #1 supply chain 6 years in a row by Gartner. We do a tremendous amount of work with Apple, and we're quite proud of our relationship with them. Rockwell Automation, Teva Pharmaceutical out of Israel, Levi Strauss, and Coca-Cola, to name a few, are exciting customers, large customers that get a lot of value out of Boardwalk. So Boardwalk Convergence, how does it work? We talked earlier about the fact that we have a database, and this database can reside either in the cloud or it can reside in a, behind a traditional firewall, so it can be totally controlled. This particular Boardwalk application engine, as we call it, manages the information exchange between people, between back-end systems, and can utilize various user interfaces, including a browser, a mobile environment, or Microsoft Excel. In the world of insurance, there's a tremendous amount of math that goes on, and so the ability to run different math calculations and formula within the local Excel spreadsheet, but still have the information connected to a database, is very positive for our insurance clients, and helps to more rapidly deliver applications where you then don't have to go rewrite something in Java or .NET and push all of the intelligence to the server. You actually can do a combination of having intelligence running at the server level and also locally, which then speeds up value. The other thing that we find is that moving people off of spreadsheets and trying to move them into a written application can be a burden, and people don't like change. So when people like to stay in their spreadsheets themselves, by adding it into Boardwalk and having the Boardwalk database and the convergence strategy applied can be quite powerful. So how it works is we have an application design studio that allows you to be able to take any spreadsheet application that you have in any format with formulas and everything else, and basically put it into the Boardwalk application engine or the server. Once that occurs, you can then set, through access control, various ranges of data for people to be able to work in and view. Those ranges of data can be represented in a spreadsheet, can be represented in a mobile environment, can be represented in a browser. It really doesn't matter. A person begins to collaborate with on a Boardwalk spreadsheet through an email or a download of a particular Excel workbook or worksheet. The code for Boardwalk is pre-embedded into that worksheet, so there is no installer for anyone to have to deal with. You simply would, on the left-hand side here as the sales manager, open up this particular spreadsheet one time, and you would save it to your desktop or wherever you want to save it. And from there, how you now communicate and collaborate with everyone else is through this particular spreadsheet and through a submit refresh function. So we don't change anything in Excel. You work directly in Excel as normal. The formulas work. You update your data. And then when you're ready to submit your data, you simply hit submit. And Boardwalk's technology has the ability to look at this range of data and compare it to the information that's sitting on the server, and then move only the net changes that have been made, and also understand from a compliance standpoint the date, the time, any comments against that particular grouping of changed cells or information, and a transaction ID that then gets logged into the server. On the right-hand side, you will see that sales rep, in this particular case, is only seeing his range of data that says sales rep. And once he makes changes, he also, through the submit refresh function, sends information when he's ready back into the Boardwalk server. Also, through integration down at the bottom, you will see that you can move data in multiple ways in and out of transactional systems of record to include information into the spreadsheet view itself. One of the key value propositions, and we'll show this to you in the demo, is the ability for us to track every change at the cell level. And you can click on any particular cell and look at a cell history and get a complete historical record of that particular cell. There's an immutable ID that goes along with each transaction. And the way that Boardwalk works, it is fairly similar to the way that a blockchain ledger environment would work, where we are not overwriting data, but we are adding data to a ledger with an immutable transaction ID. So the security and the validation and the compliance of the transaction movements between parties is firmly there. So in the insurance industry, where we really see a lot of use is certainly in pricing and pricing effectiveness. What is the appropriate price for this particular coverage or this particular risk? Renewal retention is a very big area that we do a lot of work in. Underwriting effectiveness, so trying to understand moving of information between different departments and, of course, underwriters, capturing loss information, capturing new coverage or updated coverage information from whether it's the broker or the agent or internal areas. Actuarial product quality. So as you're aggregating information across all of these different environments, actuary has a tremendous number of workbooks and spreadsheets where they're aggregating data, and we're going to show you kind of a model instance management environment that is key to actuarial, underwriting, and also pricing. Portfolio view. So how do you aggregate data across a particular client, across a particular broker or agent, or across a particular industry coverage segment, such as workers' comp? And through Boardwalk, you can do that very easily because the information is all in a database, and you can do all kinds of reporting and run a lot of AI off of this information. And then, of course, the other thing that's important is standardization. You have many different people out there that are running their own workbooks locally in different business units, and standardizing this information across a particular company on how do we actually do things with Excel and with these different model management instances is quite important. So, you know, in Excel model and instance management in the insurance industry, what we see is that actuary teams can create hundreds or thousands of Excel models. These models reflect the IP of the company. So, you know, there's a lot of work that's gone into building these models, and the intelligence and the math and the reporting and the just the structure of this is already intact IP by your particular insurance company. And you don't necessarily want to give that up. This is time-tested information. What you really want to do is get that information into a database and standardize across best practices for your particular IP. And then, of course, the underwriting teams are conducting their operations using these models, and underwriting operations can create thousands of instance workbooks. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to Dharmesh and have him talk about the Excel model instance management areas where Boardwalk has really done a nice job.
Thanks, Andy. So I think, as Andy described, there are hundreds of models and thousands of instances in the insurance industry, and that really creates a challenge for the industry in general. When somebody wants to update a model and you would like to propagate that change across thousands of instances, there is no way to do that today. Now, if you find a formula issue, you find a structural problem, you would like to add some features, functions, you can't deliver it to all the underwriting teams who are already using that model, for example. You have no ability today to update base table data or rating table data that you'd like to publish to all the instance workbooks. There is no, all of this data that is sitting in SharePoint or Documentum is kind of disconnected from the enterprise. There is no way to extract or publish data to those workbooks without writing a lot of custom code. And that too is not reliable, because if the user changes something, the whole structure breaks and it becomes unusable. Also, you find that within the underwriting teams, there's always serialization of workflow, because all the data is stored in a file, and one has to do check-in, check-out, or emailing of those files for any kind of collaboration workflow within these users. And once you have the data in this workbooks, it's no easy way to aggregate the data for management to understand, are we meeting APTP ratios goals, for example? What is the aggregate risk that is sitting across all of this potential code that you are generating, for example? And there is no way to access this data on a web-based or modern client interfaces when it's stuck inside an Excel workbook. So these are the challenges that Boardwalk addresses. And what we find is today that many times, because of the lack of awareness, lack of technologies out there, one tries to replace these workbooks with web applications, and the cost of converting these formulas into a web logic of any kind, like in Java or SQL, is cost prohibitive, time prohibitive, and also results in a lot of testing, sometimes loss of functionality, and results in a rigid application that the subject matter experts find it very difficult to change. And we would like to offer a new alternative today to this problem in the form of Boardwalk Convergence. So in Boardwalk Convergence is basically consists of 4 key components. First one being a model repository where you can take your existing Excel models, store them, and once you store them, we kind of ID them, we positionally order them, we timestamp them, and then we start managing that information. Against that model, you can start creating instances, and you can then create those specific premium codes for your customers. And once you do that, we are able to link the model to the instances. For example, if SME would update a model, we can publish those changes to the instances. Similarly, we can also access the complete history of the model and the instances in our database. At the same time, connecting this data also to the enterprise. So the way we go about solving this problem is that when you look at an unstructured model that many times sits inside these workbooks, for example, the premium that is being calculated, that unstructured value that is sitting inside the workbook can be described by fields which are surrounding the cell, for example, the general liability business, or it could be the new premium calculation, or it could be something that is described by a subject matter expert. Or it could be a workbook level attribute which will say, for example, this is an opportunity ID X, and it is related to the customer code or an SIC code, for example. All of these tags, along with tags that describe the file here or the tags that describe the model, for example, this is an auto policy model, can describe this value 1000, for example. So if you want to extract this information out and publish into some other system or push information into this workbook, these are the different business attributes that describe this particular cell, which makes this problem very difficult to have control over. And this data, for example, what Boardwalk does is it allows you to take this information, store it inside the Boardwalk database, and then allow you to connect it to the external world using any of the methods such as JSON, SQL, or file. For example, the same data can show up in Salesforce.com or your internal IT systems, and it's a bidirectional pipe back and forth between those systems and Boardwalk. And that is the value that Boardwalk provides by managing this information in the Boardwalk database. So in quickly coming to a demo to show you a flavor of how this works, we are going to show you 4 use cases today. One use case shows how to aggregate data from multiple instance documents. And the second use case shows how to tag new information in the model and then extract it out of the Boardwalk database. And then also we will talk about how to update the model, formulas or base table data and publish it to all the instance workbooks. There's a lot of features and functions in the Boardwalk application. It is aligning on collaboration, integration that we cannot cover today, but we wanted to give you a flavor of how this model instance management works today. So I'm going to switch over to a demo. So as you can see here, this is a policy renewal model that we have connected to Boardwalk, and there's a tool available in the menu available here that allows you to connect your model to the Boardwalk database. So without making any change to the model, you can take any model that you have existing today and store it in the Boardwalk database, and you can do that, for example, using a tool that is available inside your Excel file, which allows you to, for example, as a subject matter expert, I can log in, I can connect into the Boardwalk database, and then it allows me to, for example, store, submit, save my model changes or refresh latest updates from the database into my Excel model. This model has, for example, as you can see, some structured data here, some unstructured data here, and you can see that these are the attributes that we would like to, for example, people to enter and also to extract from this Excel workbook. There are also drop downs available here, for example, which help us populate those drop downs here. These are like, I would say, our base table data, a list of values data, or it could be insurance rate table that you would like to share between all the workbooks, for example. So what we did was we created 2 instance workbooks from this. So let me save this model and show you the 2 instance workbooks that we created from it. Instance account for account A and account B, for example. So I'm going to open instance workbook account A. And log in as that particular end user. So imagine now that I'm an underwriter at this company. I log in into my account. I got an instance workbook that I created from the model for a specific client. For example, you can see here the client ID is, for example, 20,000. So I'm going to change the premium of this particular customer. So I'm going to make it, for example, 2,300. As a result, I got a formula here. It changes all my data. When I complete my changes, I can simply hit submit to save my changes back to the database. So when I save my changes to the database, it is taking the net changes that I made in my Excel workbook and then save it to the database. It does not upload the whole file, only takes my changes and saves it to the database, for example. If I want to ever go back and look at the history of my changes, I can simply click on the cell and look at the history of that. By clicking on the cell history, I can go back a week, month, or a quarter, and it would pull the complete history from the database and show me that Now the latest value was 2300. Before it was 900, 1000, and 1100. So this is a unique feature of Boardwalk which allows me to access the history directly from my Excel workbook. So and without opening any older file versions, for example. Now, once this data is in the database, we'll show you how you can aggregate the data across multiple instance workbooks. So I'm going to open up our database feed and show you an example. So you can see here that this Excel workbook that I was using has a model ID 168. Okay, so you can see that I'm going to go a little slower. I think your screen is not updating as fast as my computer. So you can see here that there is a model ID 168 that is visible here. And if I go to the browser, I can enter this model ID 168 and it will generate a JSON output for me. So this is showing you an example that how the data that is locked inside the Excel workbook is now available for any integration capabilities, for example. So if I go in here and let us look for the value that we just updated in my Excel workbook. So if I go back here, and you can see here that this is the premium for a new policy that we just updated. If I go to the browser here and if I say new policy LOB1, and if I go and say, for example, the premium, you can see that the value here is 2300, which is the value that we updated from our Excel workbook. The moment we updated the Excel workbook and we hit the submit, that value sat in the database and it was tagged with all the latest information. For example, it has the business tag around it. It also has the workbook tag, such as the customer name, the Salesforce.com opportunity ID, for example. And now this data is available for bidirectional integration from other systems back and forth. So this just shows an example of how we can unlock the data that is sitting inside this unstructured workbooks and manage the instance model relationship. So what I'm going to do now is switch to the second part of my demo, where I'm going to close this file and open our original model that we just had looked at before and do a number of changes to my model and then have it publish it out to all the instances. So imagine doing this without Boardwalk, where you have 1,000 instances for a model. People are using it all the time. How do you make changes to those instances directly from your Excel model? One would have to send emails out. People would have to manually update this file. It is nearly an impossible task to do so. So I'm going back to the model file, logging in as a subject matter expert, and I'm going to do a number of things here. I'm going to go ahead and change this formula. I found a formula error. I'm going to fix that. So I changed. So if the screen is not updating on your side, so I'm going to wait a little. Okay. Heather, can you see the screen updated on your side? Okay, good. So we could see that I changed the formula here, for example. What I'm going to do also is add a new drop down here. I'm going to say, I'm going to add the government line of business here. And I'm going to also tag some new information. For example, I would like to extract the APTP ratio as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I would like to mark this tag. And you can see that today, this APTP ratio is not available in the data feed that we are generating. So to take any data that is sitting inside the model, we do something which we call as tagging. Tagging is something that a subject matter expert can do to say that this is the key information that I'm interested in the model, and I would like to extract it or publish it back into the database. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to tag this information, and I'm going to, as you can see here, this value here is described by cells up here, line of business cells up here, and it is also described by analysis tag here, and it is also described by the APTP ratio sitting here. So you can see that once I do all the tagging, that this particular cell is described by all the surrounding cells inside the workbook. So I'm going to wait for a minute to see that your screen is updated. As you can see here now that this particular set of cells, which are the APTP ratios, are described by LOB1, LOB5. So this is a tool that a subject matter expert would use to tag the information inside the workbook, and one can rapidly tag this data very, very quickly with this tag manager. And what you're really saying is that this is the semantic information around this unstructured Excel cells, which are important to me, for example. So I'm going to save them, and then I'm going to switch over to the Boardwalk sheet here. I'm going to wait for your screen to update. And I'm going to click on Update Tags, which saves the new tagging data back to the database. So we'll just give that a second, and that is done. And I'm also going to save the model updates, which is the formula changes that I did. So I'm going to save those formula updates to the database. And I'm also going to save the drop down that we just changed, which is the government field that we just added, and saved it to the database. And you can notice that all I'm doing is submit and refresh. So we do not add any new change management problems to the subject matter expert. They use the existing model they're using today, and we save all of those things to the database. So now switching back the roles to the instances which are using this particular model, I'm going to open up the instance file that we just looked at before, and let us see how they receive those updates. So I'm going to log in again as the underwriter, simulating that I'm an end user who is using this model, and we find that that user, for example, could be using that file in the middle of creating a quote, for example. They would get a notification, and the moment they do that, they can go in here and say, update my model. And this can be an automated task because we're just showing you the internals so you understand how things are happening. You can see here that change icon now shows up. It shows you that this formula got changed, and we are able to deliver this change to the end user's files without maybe having them copy pasting, emailing the file, manually working this out. Similarly, if I go ahead and refresh this data here, you can see that the new government tab has now showed up here, which is what we publish as a base table update, and that drop down is now available for me to pick, for example, for my analysis. And if you remember, we also tagged the APTP ratio as a new tag that we would like to publish to the external world. If I go here and I go ahead and generate the JSON feed one more time, and I enter the model ID, and we are showing you the internals of how the data is extracted. This is not how it will look for the end user. This is something your IT teams would look at. So if I take this and then we look at the JSON in a nice view here, if I say APTP, for example, you can start to see now that this APTP ratios are now started to get published out and available for external integration, for example. So by simply opening the model, tagging it, and simply publishing it, suddenly all the data that is in the instance workbooks, without updating the instance workbooks, is now available for you to be extracted or published back and forth with enterprise systems. This is, I would say, pretty unprecedented and not possible today by any Microsoft tool and any other product out there. This is something completely unique to Boardwalk because of our patented database that we offer.
Right, so any of you that are using model instance management across different areas within your insurance business, what you've seen is the ability to manage the model instances and the ability to actually integrate through the JSON objects into any back-end transactional system or any system. There's a high use of Salesforce.com, obviously, in the insurance industry. But this is a way for you to really not only get control over these instant model management environment, but also to greatly improve the way in which people collaborate and how greatly improve how the information is moved to and from the your back-end systems. So Boardwalk Convergence for the insurance industry can greatly help in obviously pricing, renewal retention, underwriting effectiveness, actuarial environments, managing the portfolio with reporting and standardization across all of these different model managements. So we are out of time, but we're honored to have such a nice group of people from the insurance industry. This is certainly a very big topic. And if you have any further questions or would like to follow up and talk about specifically working with us and doing a proof of concept or something along those lines, again, we'd be honored to do that. You can reach us at info@boardwalktech.com, or we'll also follow up and send some follow-up information to you. So, Dharmesh, thank you very much for a great webinar.
Thanks,
and for a wonderful demo. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.